I would consider myself a Bitcoin blockchain, more specifically evangelist, right? Educate everybody so that grandma eventually can use this stuff. My father-in-law really thinks Bitcoin is the future. He's about 75 years old, he's a cowboy. He says, Christopher, I think you're right about Bitcoin. What I think is going to happen, in my view, is we'll just change the rules. New paradigm. Here you go, it's blockchain tech. I mean, come on, how is this even legal? I want to be free. I want to be free. I think it's a God-given human right to be free.
Just go ahead and introduce yourself, but like really brief.
Yeah, so my name is Christopher Greene. I'm the founder and creator of AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It's a disruptive media force online. We have over 500,000 subscribers worldwide, over 100 million views around the world since we started about 10 years ago. I'm also the founder and creator of one of the largest blockchain educational platforms in the world called BitcoinRich.com. In fact, I've got my card here. You notice it's a real $2 bill. And it basically says fiat is worthless as a $2 bill. And people keep it, and kind of making a point with that because $2 bills, of course, are somewhat taken out of circulation, and it's fake. It's printed from the Federal Reserve. It's backed by absolutely nothing but faith of the American people, which is globally.
An education platform, what do you mean by that?
So we teach all kinds of people around the world about blockchain. Mm-hmm. What is it? I mean, the most common thing I see is that people just don't get it. They don't understand it. They hear what the mainstream media is telling them. Oh, it's a scam, stay away from it, it's evil. Oh, people only do drugs and prostitution rings on here. Yes, I'm sure it could be used for that, but you know what is primarily responsible for doing business in those areas? That thing, the US dollar bill. So, you know, we're fed so much misinformation by the media. People, they're not learning about it. They need to understand what it is, how to apply it to their life, and more importantly, how it's going to change the world. Change their job, change their career, change their ability to move, manage money. I mean, this is the first time in human history where we actually have monetary sovereignty over our own wealth. It's completely transparent. It's an unbelievable thing. We've never had this before in the history of the world.
It's revolutionary in the senses that you just said, but like I've heard people say, people today on different panels sort of throw around this idea that if like blockchain really is successful, then it will be sort of invisible. Like it's not like you have to understand how something works to use it. Example, the internet, a car.
Yeah.
So what do you feel about that statement? Like why is it important for people to understand how the technology works? Like,
well, because I think you could lose your job in a very simple manner. I think thousands, millions of jobs will be lost, just like with the internet, right? Machines are doing most jobs now. Look at a Tesla factory. I mean, there's some humans working there to do certain tasks, basically just a bunch of machines moving around. So it's going to affect your livelihood. It's going to affect your ability to feed your family, to be successful. There's huge opportunities in the disruption, so I think it starts with first understanding and education. I think it's a great starting point.
Understanding blockchain.
Yeah, just what it is, that this is the real deal, that there's integrity behind it. Bitcoin, for example, has limited supply. Okay, they're not making any more of it. They always say this about real estate. They ain't making any more land. Well, they ain't making any more Bitcoin. There's only 21 million that will ever be minted into existence. It's built on a distributed ledger, peer-to-peer network. It's decentralized. It can never be shut down. So the principles behind it are not just monetary, not just money, not just investing, which those are fringe benefits, but also look at the press, the panel I just spoke on. I mean, this is a way to have your voice heard unrestricted. It can't be shut down like today. Today we have centralized silo platforms. They dictate what people see. They censor particular voices. Maybe they don't like the color of your speech. Maybe they don't like the political party you're affiliated with. Maybe they don't like your religion. We see this right now. In fact, you can't even advertise on some of these platforms. Facebook has banned it. Up until now, they're starting to allow Coinbase and some of these companies do this. But at the same time, they're investing in the tech because they know it's the future. So it's interesting. We have old financial markets and systems, the traditional banking model, which is where I come from. I actually work for Merrill Lynch, so I was a banker. I understand how all this works. The old traditional financial model is now merging with the future. Okay, just like the advent of the internet. People didn't understand that. They didn't understand what TCP/IP was, right? I don't fully understand what TCP/IP is, but I use the internet every single day. Right. The same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin cryptocurrency, a lot of these other altcoins, and things we haven't even thought of yet.
Okay, so let's sort of like focus in on the the ad banning you mentioned, because that's a really interesting issue. These big platforms like Facebook, Google, Twitter, banning advertising of blockchain and cryptocurrency companies, at some point and to some extent, right? What do you think is like the sort of reasoning behind that, or, I mean?
Yeah, I think it comes from a regulatory perspective, which I think is a good thing. Okay, we do need some kind of regulation. It protects consumers, protects investors, and by the way, by turning down ETFs, and not approving them, you're actually hurting consumers. Because if they actually started to regulate and moved it mainstream, there'd be huge adoption and a lot of inflows of capital, obviously, but it would actually help and protect the average John and Jane on the street that maybe want to invest in Bitcoin and these kinds of things.
That's actually, okay, so you sort of moved into the ETF issue from the media issue, which is fine, and actually
you can go back to that question.
Really cool. No, I want you to explain it more, because this is like something that we're seeing in the past couple months in all media, but in the industry basically, is this concern about the delayed Bitcoin ETF application, this particular one, and the concept of the Bitcoin ETF. So can you, as a person from finance, can you explain why it's so important, or what the significance of an ETF, a Bitcoin ETF, like going through, what's the significance for the industry?
Yeah, the significance of it would be general acceptance by mass population. So for example, my father-in-law really thinks Bitcoin is the future. He's about 75 years old, he's a cowboy. He says, Christopher, I think you're right about Bitcoin. This is the future, but I'm going to wait till I can buy it through a traditional asset vehicle, like an ETF or an index fund, he tells me. So that's a perfect example, because things are relatively complex now. That's why first movers have first mover advantage. There's been a lot of millionaires minted, a lot of billionaires that got started early, but there's a lot of complexity. How to secure your private keys, how to invest, who to trust, what exchange to use. There's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of scams. So it's the Wild West today, just like the internet used to be the Wild West. And this go back to BBSing, and I remember using Prodigy as a kid, or dial-up modem. Some of my friends out of their basement had servers that they ran out of their homes, and now they work in Silicon Valley. Nobody understood it until it became mainstream. And the same thing I think is happening today with blockchain.
Okay, so your sort of goal is to help that process happen,
Yeah, I would consider myself a Bitcoin, blockchain, more specifically, evangelist, right? Educate everybody, so that grandma eventually can use this stuff. And technology will be developed so that maybe they don't even know that they're using blockchain, like you said, which is I think is going to happen, but they're using an app. Or I really believe what you're going to have is a digital wallet, right? A fiat and blockchain technology. You may have a little Bitcoin, you have a little Ether, you have Cardano, maybe you have some other real micro coins that you like. Things that other people don't. Look at our own individual paradigms in advertising today. Based on my search history, the algorithm that studies me, machine learning, basically creates my own reality based on my interests, what I like to watch. Google has patents on pupil dilation. So for example, it can learn and tell how you are biologically reacting to advertisements. Sound fair? It's not fair. The machines are smarter than us too. It's like a chess player, 1,000 moves in advance. How does a human compete with that? So I think you want to be early on this stuff, because there's opportunity, there's entrepreneurship, and it's going to affect all of our lives. When I started in social media, people thought that was weird. What? Why would you be on YouTube? I interview people like Steve Forbes now. I meet with people like Eric Schmidt. We travel the world. This is so mainstream, it's ridiculous. In fact, if you don't have social media accounts, you can't even operate in this world. Same thing with, I think, the new technology here that we're discussing.
Okay. Yeah, what do you think, in terms of government's interaction with this technology? Can we talk a little bit about regulation, or this distinction that a lot of governments sort of come up with, which is that they look at blockchain and cryptocurrency as these distinct things? There might be different regulation, and that's okay, but sort of generally speaking, crypto is bad and scary and blockchain is good. What do you think sort of this landscape is like in the US, and what does it need to be?
So the old model's dead, right? I come from banking. It's archaic, it's broken, it's a system that doesn't work. Evidence of that is multi-trillion-dollar bailouts in 2009. It doesn't work. It's broken. So everybody knows this, everybody, whether or not they admit it or not, on Wall Street. I mentioned in the panel, a lot of the people I know are leaving Wall Street to go work in this field, in blockchain. It's the future. Everybody knows it. So what I think is going to happen, in my view, is they'll just change the rules. New paradigm. Here you go. It's blockchain tech. So I think we're going to see a lot of, just like they did in 08 and 09 with the bailouts. See, they don't play by a normal set of rules. There's no rules for these people. They do what they want. They tell you and I to accept these rules, laws, regulations, these kinds of things. But so I think they just change the paradigm. They say, hey, it's over. Guess what? The dollar collapsed. Isn't that a problem? Guess what? We've got the solution. It's on a silver platter. While you were sleeping, overnight, we consolidated with the new technology. Companies like Facebook maybe bought Coinbase, acquired billions of users around the world. And you're just going to see a merger where they just, again, the snap of their fingers, it's done. We've already moved forward.
They, the government?
They, the government, those that are in control, the big corporations.
They're one thing, like they're funded.
In my view, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, I see them
fair.
as a single entity.
What about this concept, not a new concept anymore, but this concept of a central bank digital currency or a just government-backed cryptocurrency? Do you think that that is something that has a place in, that has a value for people, that will like be good for them, or is that something that's going to sort of like distract people or take them away from like the real decentralized?
Yeah, there's two opposing forces, I think, at work, naturally, in human nature. Good, evil, evil, good, good, evil. So, it's tough to just, and there's a gray area, too, in between there. So, yes, do I think the global governments will try to introduce something like the Fed coin? Potentially. Absolutely. Will people use it? I don't know. Let the free market decide. So I think maybe it's important for us not to get too caught up in, is this evil or is this good? I know from personal experience, being a part of the revolution, that this is an organic occurrence. For example, I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is or was. I have no idea who he is. It could be a government plant. Honestly, they could have planted the technology. But I really don't care because it works. I don't need to know who developed or came up with Pythagorean theorem, for example. It works. So if it's a better tool that works in the world, and I understand its principles, and it's something that's based on mathematics, not subjectivity, is that not better from the current system? And I would argue yes. And I think the free market is deciding now, as we see these huge capital flows move in. We look at a market that's, I think around 200 billion-ish something. I mean, it's been wildly swinging back and forth. Bitcoin hit 20,000, then it went down to 6. It's still so early. But I think we will see in our lifetime, in the next 5-10 years, full adoption or close to it. And this will be a multi-trillion-dollar market that will rival anything that we've ever seen. Bitcoin will easily be bigger than Apple computers, Microsoft, maybe all those tech giants combined.
Okay. I want you to break down the concept of adoption a little bit because it's kind of a big concept. It's really important. So we're talking about like adoption in terms of people using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin in their everyday lives, or are we talking about blockchain technology being this technology on which lots of companies are based, like how the internet sort of permeates our everyday lives and we use it, but again, don't necessarily notice it?
Yeah, I think there's this tendency to have a myopic view that it's just about currency, just to store. Bitcoin's a store of value, it's digital gold, or I use Ether to transact, but it's so much bigger than that. It's so much. So a perfect example would be, look at most jobs, all the middlemen and the middlewomen out there that we really don't need. Now, for example, look at real estate. I'll just pick on that. Why do I need a real estate agent? Why? I don't. I don't need a real estate agent. So why are they there? Why are they taking 3-6% when I want to go buy a house? In fact, just give me a black box built on the blockchain and I'll enter the house myself. I'll bypass middlemen and middlewomen everywhere. It'll save me money too. Okay, they're probably upcharging me 30-40% along the way, right? That's how they make their living. So the point is, media, that's another example, which is my primary interest, right? New decentralized media platforms are being built on the blockchain. A peer-to-peer network that can't be shut down because it's not isolated, it's not centralized. So it's really this concept of decentralization and how this affects not just currency, not just a store of value, not just transactions, but basically the entire business model of planet Earth. A company I'm thinking, a project offhand called Avanoc, I did a review recently, just cuts out the middlemen for aviation travel. I want to book a private jet? Okay, easy. Click, And there's these ecosystems built, right? So they issue tokens. It encourages me to actually use it. Think if Uber did this. Uber could go the way of MySpace if they don't adapt and adopt this new technology very quickly. Because maybe I prefer using a competing app that has just as good of an app, maybe a little bit better, but also a token that incentivizes me to share it with my friends. I feel like I'm really participating in something cool. It's my own little miniature paradigm and ecosystem. We see the same thing on the internet today, as I mentioned that, where I'm advertised whatever I'm interested in. If I'm interested in conservative politics, they give me an ad for that. The same thing can be applied to the tech. So to reach mass adoption, I think you're going to see it not just in the vein of currency. You're going to see it in the vein of the entire digital, globalized economy. And that's what we're becoming. Look how you mentioned you travel all over the world, all over the world. So it's borderless now.
Well, okay, so with media in particular, I'm interested in like the actual concrete applications you're talking about, because so I watched the panel that you guys did, the media panel, and you're saying like there is this emerging decentralized media platforms, but you're not participating in one of those, you are...
We haven't ICO'd yet. Maybe we will
one
in the future. Yeah, the concept of alternative media television is that. A platform that started centralized, utilizing other social media companies, right, like Google, Facebook, Twitter, all these things we use today. But there are projects that we are participating on. I'll point out Minds, for example, or BitChute. These are decentralized social media platforms that are distributed, built around blockchain with their own token, that have already successfully ICO'd, raised with their token generation events, raising millions and millions of dollars. And those are amazing alternatives to what we have now. So that's where a lot of my personal interest is building that future.
Okay, and so that, like, sort of the point of decentralized media is being able to combat, like...
Just to be able to speak. I mean, there's so much censorship. So, for example, it's a disaster out there today. Half the time I almost find myself self-censoring what I really think, because I know the algorithm's going to pick something up, or I'll think about the title or how I'm keywording, because I know what it's looking at. And so all of a sudden we're in this environment where maybe because people don't like the color of my speech, for example, I'm an advocate of Donald Trump. I know that's not popular amongst everyone, but we helped to elect him, actually. We moved over 10 million plus eyeballs a month during the election, and they changed the algorithm right after he was elected. That's what Google did. They used to call us, conspiracy theorists, or people like, don't take these guys seriously. Social media is not going to do anything. I mean, he had a third of the budget, I think, of Hillary Clinton. The mainstream media said he could never win the election. He won. Why? Social media, right? Virality of the network. And the same thing's happening on blockchain. So personally, I'm open to all opinions. I have friends that voted for Obama. My brother does not like Trump. I mean, I'm open to all that diversity, okay? But I don't want to be censored. So these platforms tell me, well, we're not going to censor based on ideological politics. Well, just the sheer fact that Jack Dorsey would say that tells me that they are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing a media interview about it. And we've started to see this with very flamboyant characters, to pick on Alex Jones, whom I don't agree with, to be honest. But shutting him down, why? Is he that dangerous to the system? Yes. They don't want him to speak. Because the reality is, Malcolm X said this, that the mainstream media is the most powerful entity on earth. If you can change how people think, the seed of what they think their state of reality is, you have control over mass populations, completely. You can make up news, okay? We talked about this on the panel. I don't even believe that there's objective news. Nothing's objective. Everything's subjective. If a car crash happens outside right now and a red car runs into a blue car, I could go to 3 witnesses as an objective reporter. Every witness is going to tell me something different based on their own ideas of what happened, what they saw, their vision. Maybe there was an obstruction. I'm going to get 3 different stories. What's the truth? The truth is we all need to be able to think critically for ourselves. They think that we're dumb. They don't want you or me to think for ourselves. They want to control the narrative completely.
A lot of people would say that big platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter, given that they are not government organizations but private platforms, that they have the right to I mean, it's a really controversial subject,
Yeah, so
right? They have the right to decide. I agree that it's controversial. I'm just saying that is an argument. And how do you respond to that argument?
Sure, it's absolutely an argument. 100% disagree with it. I think it's a shitty argument, personally. Not your argument, but their argument, what they're telling us. Okay, well, what if Verizon Wireless doesn't like my political speech? Are they going to turn off my phone? What if my utility company that provides electricity in my house doesn't like that I voted for Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. And so they want to shut off my power supply. This is like, I've got a car, and they own the information superhighways, or a literal highway. They've completely monopolized the space. There are no other competitors to these companies, right, which, by the way, work hand in hand with the U.S. federal government and are at the White House more often than not, whether or not it's Trump, Obama, or if it would have been Hillary. It doesn't matter. These are very powerful people. Again, these are the same people like Eric Schmidt, who now works as chairman of the Innovation Board at the Department of Defense. I mean, come on, how is this even legal? These are front companies. So they're telling me, the little guy, because they don't like what I have to say, you know what, you can broadcast yourself, or you can drive your car, but only in your own driveway. You can't use our highway, but there's no alternative. Yet I'm free to do that. You know what they're doing now? They're targeting hosting companies. Hosting companies will say, on your own website, we don't like you. We're turning you off. Go somewhere else. So we see this pitchfork mentality from the same people that tell me they embrace diversity. And I embrace diversity. I have all kinds of friends, all kinds of political beliefs, people that are homosexual, transgender. I know everybody. I love them all. Might disagree with some things and agree with others. That's fine. But the same people that are preaching diversity are basically shutting down, extinguishing, and digitally executing those people that they don't like. Why? Why? Because they don't like competition, and in working with the government, which, this is my view, people will argue it, government is media. They control. For example, most Americans don't even know Disney just acquired Fox News, and they think that's an alternative to CNN or MSNBC. It's like going into a grocery store and thinking you have options, yet there's two companies that provide every single product in there. That's not an option. This is like the former, I think it was, vice president of Monsanto, who has to change its name because of effective people like me. Because people know that they're killing people. Some guy just won a lawsuit for like $200 million because they gave him cancer. Okay, they've got to change their name. I'm losing my train of thought there a little bit, but it's a bad argument. Mm-hmm. It's a bad argument, and it's like comparing apples to oranges.
What do you think if you could distill the sort of like selling point of cryptocurrency for an average person, like a use case or what is it called? Like the value proposition of decentralized cryptocurrencies, really distill that for someone who isn't in the industry and doesn't really know.
I want to be free.
Okay.
I want to be free. I think it's a God-given human right to be free. I want control over my own future. I want to be able to take risks unrestricted. I don't want to be regulated or taxed and oppressed by that. I mean, that's why this country here became the country that it is. We didn't like unfair taxation without representation, so we fought back against those kings and queens who just have this tendency to want to control us so badly so they can tax us and do all these things. Now, I pay my taxes. I do. I'm not, picking.
You have to pay taxes on crypto also.
You do, and it's a nightmare for our accountants and these kinds of things. But people are accepting it. This is the new world, and let's build systems around that. Hopefully, that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be free.
Last question is just like more personal. You personally own cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. You're upfront about that. Do you sort of like care about or pay attention to the volatility that makes headlines like last week? I mean, or it could be any week, but like mm-hmm. last week was the last time when you see, especially mainstream media reporting on the market crash, sort of like in really dramatic language. What do you say to that, or what do you sort of think about that, and how does that affect your...
Yeah, a great question. I think it plays again into human nature, right? What motivates us as human beings? Fear, greed, sexual attraction. I mean, these are basic instincts, even though we try to think we're so civilized, but really underneath it all, this is who we are. And so, for example, there's a lot of attention. We hit new all-time highs, and Bitcoin's trading at $20,000 per US fiat dollar. The media's all over it.
Right.
And that is actually the peak of interest. It's an interesting phenomenon. Everybody's so interested then. Okay, I can see it with raw data, analytics. I can even see it with sales in my e-commerce stores, buying related products in real time. Okay, which is great. It's great that people are learning about it. In fact, even if the media is putting out negative information on cryptocurrency, that's great. More people are being exposed to it. But listen, can you help me out again?
Yeah, there's. Does it matter? I mean, so you have these this huge peak in December, but then you have sort of if you look at the drop last week, you're going to get these really dramatic headlines about it. But then if you looked at the price it was a year ago, then you're going to have some perspective that it's really up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, do you trade? Do you care about these fluctuations, or are you just, not paying attention to that stuff?
Yeah, I try not to pay attention to. I'm human, so I'm going to look, but I'm a long-term investor.
You don't trade. You don't day trade.
Sometimes, maybe, if I see an opportunity. Okay, but I really believe fundamentally in the long-term horizon of this technology in general, blockchain in general.
But you have, do you have a diversified portfolio, or you're
yeah, I have
some people are hardcore
Yeah, no, I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a Bitcoin maximalist, although that makes up some of my largest holdings. I think this is the Wild West. Right. I don't know what the future holds. I just know it's going to change the world. As a question I asked myself when we started our social media company 10 years ago is, do I think that this will be here in another 10 years? I thought about it and I said, yeah. And when I asked a question about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, blockchain, I say, yeah, it's absolutely going to be here.
Cointelegraph. Like, subscribe, and hodl.